Wait, there's yet another Penn State edge rusher projected to be drafted high? We just had Chop Robinson and Adisa Isaac get drafted in the first 93 picks last season. I gotta take a closer look at this. Okay, so there's Chop, there's Isaac. How can they project Abdul Carter this high? Oh wait, there he is. So there's this prospect named Abdul Carter, an edge rusher out of Penn State. Well, at least he's 2 games fresh at edge rusher. And do not let the intro of this video fool you, this guy has been on my radar for the last few months now. When I watched over film for the 2024 NFL Draft, especially for offensive linemen, every Penn State game I watched involved me being impressed with something that number 11 did on the field. At the inside linebacker position, he was debatably the best blitzer in all of college football last year. And this season, you won't be seeing him rushing the passer at the linebacker position nearly as much. In a February roster change, the Nittany Lions officially listed Carter as a defensive end on the roster. In his first 2 seasons at linebacker, Carter registered 1,188 snaps. 510 of those snaps were in run defense, and 435 of those came in coverage. But most importantly, he rushed the passer on 243 snaps those first 2 years, which was 1 in every 4.9 snaps. Another intriguing statistic came through the alignment versatility, where in 588 defensive snaps last season, he lined up in the box for 470 of those. Interestingly enough, 22 of those came at slot corner and 2 more came at wide corner and free safety respectively. But this does not include the 94 snaps Carter took on the defensive line, 1 in every 6.3 snaps. So with the experience already there and the proven success as a pass rusher, James Franklin and company decided to officially make the switch. Carter's now on the D-line. On top of the position switch, Carter looks to translate to the NFL as a pass rusher with his 6'3", 252-pound frame, solid arm length, and overall good measurables. There are a lot of other traits that will be discussed in this video, but for now, the switch looks to give Carter a wider range of skills and experience for his upcoming NFL days. But will this switch pay off in the long run? Is Carter still a first-round talent after switching positions completely? Let's dive into that, shall we? If you read the title of this video, you will see that Abdul Carter is my favorite prospect as we speak for the 2025 NFL Draft. Where does this interest come from, you might ask? Well, the position change is obviously interesting, but I've always had a soft spot for linebackers who are top-tier blitzers from that position. Take Devin White, for example. I really liked Devin White coming out of college, and while he has not panned out up to this point, there was no denying his elite pass rush capabilities. I mean, he had 37 pressures on only 87 pass rush snaps in the 2017 collegiate season. And even sticking with LSU, another one of my favorite 2025 NFL Draft prospects as we speak is LSU linebacker Harold Perkins, another great blitzer from the position. And while favorite might not mean best, I'm still fully anticipating that come March when I'm finalizing all of my rankings, Carter is one of the best prospects in this draft. But the interest has to come from somewhere, and after watching a few 2023 games, yeah, my interest is still there. First off, I will be the first to admit that his 2023 game against Iowa was not the best game I've ever watched. It was just not that good. No pressures all game despite 7 pass rush snaps, 2 tackles with no misses, and a mediocre coverage game that saw him guarding the wrong zone that another defender was in. But then we get to his performance against Maryland, which was just so fun to watch. In the pass rush, he had 4 pressures, 3 hurries, and a sack that I'll go over later. He also made 6 total tackles in that game, but did miss 1. And he wasn't strong in coverage, allowing 7 receptions, but holding those receivers to minimal gains made up for those receptions. Finally, I also watched the 2023 Michigan game, and it's not in the middle ground of the two aforementioned games. This game was super strong as well. Only 1 pressure and only 5 pass rush snaps. Also only 6 coverage snaps where he did not allow a single target to go his way. He stood his ground in 48 run snaps nonetheless, making himself known all around the field in several different games. But specifically, here's what I found in Carter that makes me so interested in his play and his switch over to defensive end. I think what stands out most on tape for Carter is his great athleticism. He is an S-tier athlete for the position. We are talking about a guy who can go from 0 to max speed in a very small span, a guy with a 40 time sitting in the mid 4.4s, a guy who is super flexible off the edge, a guy who can change direction efficiently as shown in coverage. He's definitely passed the athletic test. But I think what sets him apart is that first step off the line. Athletically, that's a lot better than a bunch of other defensive line prospects that I have looked at so far. Here's one of those Maryland plays. In a game where he just dominated, I could make a whole video just on his performance in this game, but he shows off that great first step in this play. Before I go any further, let me just say that this tackle he dominated, this is Delmar Glaze. He just got drafted 77th overall by the Las Vegas Raiders in the 2024 draft, and it might not look like he was worth it when you watch this game. Anywho, he gets off the line so fast, which allows for him to accelerate so fast and get around Glaze with ease. Now, he had this sack in the bag, except cornerback Johnny Dixon went unblocked on the DB blitz and got one of his 4.5 sacks on the season. But we're focusing on Carter here, and he just used pure speed and explosiveness to beat Glaze off the edge. Let's watch Carter do it again off of speed and explosiveness. Penn State showed 5 and brought 4 with an extra blitzer, which did help Carter in collapsing the pocket quicker. But even without the blitz, even without the pressures, he got Glaze off the edge again and put pressure on the quarterback, and while again he wasn't the first or the only one there, he got the pressure extremely fast using this aforementioned athleticism. So we've seen the first step, we've seen the speed, we've seen the explosiveness, but we do know that having an athletic profile or a good athletic profile isn't the only key to a successful pass rush plan. The arsenal is what adds to that plan though. He might not have the physical tools, especially when rushing the passer, but he really does have the athletic tools, so let's continue talking about that athleticism. Back to Maryland yet again, where he had a very fun spin move. He fakes outside before spinning inside and getting past Glaze's leverage. On top of that, it looks like Glaze got a hold of him, and while the flags did come in, I'm pretty sure this flag was on the blocker taking care of Adisa Isaac on the other side. But he got by with the spin move, and that's what I'm talking about right now. Let's switch up games just to prove that he's not just Delmar Glaze's dad. In this game against Michigan, he's lining up against Ladarius Henderson, but with Henderson showing up field, he's really up against 2024 5th round draft pick Trevor Keegan. And guess what he does? If you guessed blows by him, you're half right, because he also blew by the block from Blake Corum. He gave McCarthy the pressure, and while he was already running the opposite way, Carter blew by 2 blocks and was right there. So it's obvious that Carter has the pass rush plan, but can he impact the same way in run defense? If you left it up to me, I would say yes. It's not the most special thing ever, but he's also not a bad run defender at all. It starts in the gap control for me, as he's able to blow up runs or block off running lanes at pretty dang good rates. Let me explain. Or actually, let the film explain. Here's a clip against Iowa last season. In a play designed to free up the B gaps with pull blocks, Carter recognizes a hole filling in on his side of the line. Now back to the athleticism part of it, where he gets to that gap so quickly to where he can jump through the gap and make the tackle as the back cuts and explodes towards the other gap. Minimal gain because of Carter's gap control here. The tackling is a weakness in his game nonetheless, but when faced with a one-on-one tackle with support around him, he's honestly not that bad. It's more making tackles in the open field that he struggles with. You can see what I mean here. He's facing Corum one-on-one against Michigan, and as the gap frees up, he goes in for the tackle. He could have used better technique, or at least that's what I thought, until Corum actually ended up fumbling the football here. It was not a lost fumble, Michigan recovered, but it's still a forced fumble nonetheless. Even if Carter wasn't that great at run defending, I'm sure he'd be looked at just as much. I mentioned Devin White earlier. He was a great blitzer and was solid in coverage, but he was not the best in run defense, yet he was still the 5th overall pick. But we're talking about Carter in this video, and Carter, he's not so bad in the run game. Something else that I think Carter does really well is in decision making, where he is a very good heads up decision maker and does really well in the moment. Now, I've already mentioned that in zone coverage, sometimes this is not shown, but he makes up for this in other aspects of the game. It can be as simple as Carter making a quick, efficient decision when rushing the passer, like that spin move I showed you earlier. But there's more to it than just that. Here's a play up against Michigan, lined up as an outside linebacker. He stays in a quarterback spy while his other linebacker friends drop into man coverage. As the play is going on, Carter pulls the trigger perfectly. As soon as Loveland behind him is covered, he rushes the passer and disrupts the pass, able to get a hand up and deflect the pass. I think I also gotta mention that this play was on 3rd down and 3. Huge caliber play here out of Carter. On this play against Iowa, Carter shows blitz, but once again lines up as the quarterback spy. The Hawkeyes meant to draw up a screen here, but Penn State blew that up, including Carter, who recognized the screen. With the passer unable to get it off, he throws it a little hectic and Carter nearly gets his hands on it for an interception. Or he did get his hands on it, nearly got an interception. You know what I mean. Carter does have one career interception, and that was against Illinois. Unfortunately, I don't have a cut up for that game. I know y'all missed the Maryland game. 2nd and 10, cover 2 man here, and Carter actually goes against the grit. He jumps off of his man to jump a passing lane and nearly gets an interception. You can tell he wanted that in the aftermath of the play, but I also will admit that if Tagovailoa pump faked here, it probably would have been a big gain against Carter. So those are some positives about Abdul Carter. While I have hopefully convinced you that Carter is a very good prospect, it's not a CKJ video without looking at the other side of things. There are issues with Carter, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes addressing those. The biggest issue I have with Carter, and a big reason as to why he switched positions, is that he just misses a bunch of tackles. In 2023 alone, Carter missed a whopping 16 tackles, a missed tackle rate of 28.1%. Out of all FBS linebackers who had 500 snaps last season, that rate is the 2nd worst. And so far this year, he has had 1 missed tackle on 4 tackle attempts, a missed tackle rate of 25%. At the same time though, it's not as serious when you're a defensive lineman, at least compared as to how important it is for a linebacker. Nonetheless, it might help you understand why he made the switch to defensive line. On this play, for example, up against Maryland, Tagovailoa makes a quick check down because of the pressure and swings it out to his receiver. His buddy Kalen King failed to make the tackle, but his attempt actually allowed for the receiver to be basically stationary when Carter went in for his attempt. Yet, he still barely got a hand on him, and he also missed the tackle. This play is slightly different for Carter, but it still shows that his tackling technique as a linebacker was not good. Toss play here goes outside, and Carter finds himself in line with the back. But again, he doesn't go into the tackle with much anticipation, and he just runs himself through the tackle, making slight contact with the back and then falling over. Do you see what I mean? So yes, even the biggest Abdul Carter supporter can see some flaws in his game. Hopefully this tackling stuff doesn't carry on to his defensive lineman play, and as I said before, it might not be as important now that he's a D-line, but hopefully it still doesn't linger. And I put supporter in quotation marks because there are some off the field concerns relating to Carter. He ran into trouble with the law twice over the last year and 5 days, beginning with a controversial topic. On September 6th last season, he was charged with misdemeanor marijuana possession after setting off his dorm's fire alarm due to his smoking. Recreational marijuana use is illegal in the state of Pennsylvania, and while some do believe that the drug should be legal countrywide, Carter broke the law nonetheless. But more importantly and more concerningly, Carter has an assault charge on his name. After his Dodge Challenger was about to get towed at an apartment complex, he got in an altercation with the tow truck driver and reportedly carried him across the parking lot and threw him into the grass, all because the driver called out his yelling. It was a misdemeanor assault charge, and as a result, he was accepted into the Accelerated Rehabilitative Disposition Program, which he must stay in for a year. He will still be in the program both during and after the draft. So there are concerns for Carter as to if he's going to be able to behave off the field. As a result, teams might stray away from him. But that's what I got for the negatives. So as we speak, where do I stand with Carter as a prospect? There are clear questions about him that need to be answered during his junior season, but if he was to somehow find eligibility and enter the 2024 NFL draft, I think he could have been an early second-round pick. In terms of grading now, I have graded my prospects on a scale on if they were to enter the 2024 draft, as I am awaiting to see if these prospects will improve for 2025. And since I've only really gone through the top quarterbacks, running backs, and edge rushers so far, it's kind of a toss-up as to where Carter will end up on my big board. But for now, he's still my favorite prospect and the most intriguing prospect as we get into the midst of the 2024 college football season. Well, those are my current thoughts on Penn State edge rusher Abdul Carter. What do you think of this prospect? Let me know in the comments section below. Wait, are you not subscribed yet? Well, do it now. I release content like this all the time and would really appreciate your support. I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and I will see you all next time.